Singapore designers can now get up to $35,000 for them to come up with innovative solutions to tackle issues like climate change, an aging population, and even inequality. That's under the newly launched Good Design Research Program by DesignSingapore Council. So far, 7 projects have been chosen from over 60 proposals. They include a group of woodcrafters making furniture from local trees and fashion designers wanting to change the retail scene. The new program also covers research ideas, for instance, on how to remake public spaces for social cohesion. One firm is looking at how to redesign the nature of work amid COVID-19.
There are many other spaces in Singapore that can be repurposed, reused, for example, to cater to the needs of the workers in Singapore today. So that fundamentally changes the relationship that all of us have with each other. Right? So what we plan to do is to have in-depth interviews with different types of employers, employees from different industries.
When we ask our local designers whether they are also interested in addressing some of these global issues, the answer is a resounding yes. However, I think the hurdle that they face is really in terms of doing that deep research in understanding each of these topics takes time and takes resources. And something that is scarce to come by, especially on a day-to-day business kind of work schedule that they're in.
All right, for more on the chosen projects, we're joined by Mark Wee. He's Executive Director from the DesignSingapore Council. Mark, so the 7 projects, they range from product to service design disciplines. So let's zoom into one that explores the impact of COVID-19 and how the future of work can be supported in a sustainable way. So keeping in mind that businesses will have to adapt as the COVID-19 situation, continues to evolve and that there's no solution that's one size fits all. How realistic is it to come up with interventions at this current point?
Well, thanks, Glenda. Big question, but I think, if you think about it, it's an agency, the design studio, that actually won that research project grant from us. Really wanted to tackle what it was like, what the challenges were like out of this whole circuit breaker work from home situation. Just understanding that a lot of people and office and companies had been thrown into it and had to make do, but understanding that if that would be a new normal, how can we design the future of work? And how do we know and how can we get deeper into things like what employees and employers want, what are the sort of mental stresses or what well-being now looks like, even just in this future of work, and how do we start to think about it and how do we design better experiences for work. So I think the project's not hoping to maybe make interventions straight off, but really allows the firm to understand really deeply what the needs are on the ground and then starting to think about what tools and frameworks in which we can design better going forward.
Mark, another chosen project aims to look at inequality and social cohesion through their research. Can you elaborate on what we can expect from this project and why this issue is so important now?
Well, this was another project. It was a project by a studio called Common Ground, where they were very, very interested in trying to understand what the sort of social structures, or in a way, how do we design for strong communities, especially when things in Singapore are developing so quickly, and oftentimes what was happening and what was being sort of pulled apart sometimes was sort of social systems that was in place. So this team actually chose to try to understand how could they design communities for sustained and inclusive growth. And what they're going to do is really amazing. They're going to start with Jurong. They're trying to understand and map what the human systems in there were. And then from there, be able to understand what is important, how do you preserve it, how do you strengthen what's already located. And hopefully this can be a body of research that will accompany your typical sort of like architecture or urban redevelopment plans in an area. So it's really about investigation into the software alongside what a lot of the hardware infrastructure that's going to change Jurong the coming future.
Well, the other 5 selected projects, they cover a more tangible issue, waste and environmental sustainability. What type of support specifically will be provided to the design companies to ensure that their designs are practical and actually come into fruition at the end of the day?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a way to maybe dive into this program, right? So the Good Design Research Program, when we first started, was really on the premise that really good design requires good research and investment. And oftentimes what happens is that companies, usually when they're just trying to just sustain themselves or being able to just sustain themselves commercially, often don't actually have the time to invest in being able to develop a deep body of work or a deep point of view, which is why we came up with this program. So what this program offers is it's a $35,000 grant that covers a lot of the sort of the costs that's associated in commercializing or bringing or developing MVP or a kind of minimum viable product or a proof of concept for their idea, and that would be and then they would basically fund some of that with their own kind of manpower costs, but allow them to kind of get into projects that they would never be able to be commissioned to do, or they would have to investigate at their own cost and usually at their own sacrifice. So what this project does is it gives you money. There's also a mentorship program to that. There's also where mentors will come in and actually help walk with the firms. And I think after 12 months, they're meant to showcase their projects and give talks about it at the National Design Center. And then after that, we're going to track this. This is our first open call for it. But in the future, as we see, we might provide maybe a VC or provide them to pitch in front of capital on how to develop these projects further as well. So this is something that we're starting, but we started by talking to on the ground, and we found there was a resounding yes, that people really wanted to get into certain interesting projects, but they could never find the ability to do that on their own. And hopefully this is a way to kind of kickstart it. So it's something we're very excited about, and we see it growing year on year. And just to kind of put out there, we made a first call in April, and we're going to make a second call, open call again to designers out there in the second half of the year, fourth quarter.
All right. Thanks very much, Mark, for speaking to us this evening. Exciting times ahead. Mark Wee, Executive Director from the Design Singapore Council.